And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I'm your host, Wes Tankersley. Today we have a great guest for you. His name is Mike Cavaggioni. He is an entrepreneur, real estate, Navy vet, Navy, not vet yet, Navy in the Navy. And so we're going to do a little bit of interview, kind of talk about how he defines his success. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Wes, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you know, it's always interesting. I like to have people on to talk about kind of what they do and where they're going. And I love when you're doing one thing and you've got another thing going on, because I think that you're never complacent. We mentioned you're currently in the Navy now. I don't think you call, and this is just my ignorance, but I don't think you're a veteran until after, right? Is that how that works?
Right. Yeah, later this year after I retire.
So you are retiring this year, is what you've decided, huh?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about, kind of where you grew up, where you're from, those types of things, and what kind of drove you to want to go to the Navy?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm originally from Long Island, New York. I was born in Florida for whatever reason, unlike the rest of my siblings that were all born in New York, but we won't get into that. That's a whole different podcast episode as to why I was born in Florida. But anyway, grew up in New York, lived in the Bronx when I was very, very small. We moved out to Long Island into the suburbs, and I grew up there. That's pretty much where I spent most of my young life. And at the age of 17, when I was going into my senior year of high school, I decided to join the Navy and go into the delayed entry program. And by doing that, basically I signed up the summer in between my junior and senior year, and I had to wait a year to ship out. I had to wait till I graduated high school. So graduated high school, 2 weeks later, I'm in boot camp, right? Now, fast forward a little bit to where I'm at today, going on 20 years in the Navy. And it's been kind of crazy. Like, I've been all around the world. I've deployed 5 times. I've done a boots on ground deployment in Baghdad. Got to do some time over there. Very interesting perspective compared to my other deployments, where we, going out to sea and everything and doing those, and visiting all the different ports and getting to travel all the different countries. This deployment was a little bit different because I was in one place the whole time. Nice though, because it was consistent and I got to go to the gym every day. So that was really good. But anyway, yeah, so it's been a pretty wild ride. Throughout my time in the Navy, pretty young in the Navy, about 3.5 years in, I got married to my wife, and we have 2 daughters, and they kind of are trying to figure out what to really call home, right? Because they lived in Virginia for a little while with us. Now, I was stationed there for 15 years in Virginia, and now we're out here in Hawaii. And we've lived here now for almost 4 years. So it's kind of the same amount of time. Well, and they lived in Virginia a little bit longer, but they kind of moved around. When I was deployed, they would go back to New York and everything. So they kind of bounced around a little bit when we were back in Virginia, but now they've been kind of settled here. So that's been an interesting piece to watch them develop, especially out here in Hawaii, right, where we have endless summer. So there is no like snow days or anything like that, but none of that matters because we homeschool as well. So it's kind of wild. Now,
No, yeah, that's too bad.
yeah,
No get out of school free card.
yeah, for sure. So it kind of sucks for them. Kind of sucks for us too sometimes if you think about it. But it's been a pretty wild ride. And throughout my time in the Navy, I always felt like there was something more that I should be doing, right? And my uncle always used to talk to me about real estate investing because he bought real estate while he was working as a corrections officer for the state of New York. And he said, when I retire from the state and I collect my pension, he's like, basically, I'm going to collect my pension and I'm going to collect rent checks, and that's it. And guess what he's doing right now in retirement? He's collecting his pension and he's collecting rent checks. Between the 1st and the 5th, he's driving around collecting rent checks. So I was like, man, that's nice. And so that kind of put the bug in my head to do something a little bit more, maybe start investing in real estate. I've been wanting to do it for a long time. Now, I bought my first house in 2007, right? So not a good time to buy your first house. Didn't know that at the time. Nobody really did. Nobody knew what was coming. Then 2008, 2009 happened with the real estate crash. The house I purchased for 250,000 was now worth less than 150,000. So that was pretty rough. I wound up having to short sell that property because I transferred from my recruiting duty station in Charlottesville, Virginia, to back to Virginia Beach, and I rented it out. And when my renter left, I couldn't find another renter because it was like impossible to rent in that area. Plus, I was eating a $400 a month payment because I could not have the rent cover my mortgage because properties didn't rent that high.
Right.
So anyway, whole big mess there. I wound up having to short sell the property, and I wound up selling it for 157,000 when I bought it for 250 just a couple years before. So you can imagine how much that stung, right?
Yep.
Now, I had it on a VA loan, right? So the VA guarantees it. So I had that covered. But basically, I was told you'll never get another VA loan unless you pay back. I think it was like $68,000 or something like that is what I still had to pay back to the VA to get my benefit back. So I was like, okay, well, that kind of sucks. Kind of puts a damper on the plans. So fast forward a little bit further to 2016. I'm in Iraq. And right before I deployed, my wife and I, we had come up with a really good plan to pay off all of our debt. Like we had already enacted it. We'd already started because I had about $28,000 in credit card debt, plus a couple personal loans and everything else, right? So we come up with a plan to pay everything off. And when I'm in Iraq, I'm getting some extra pay. So we're just shelling that out and just trying to pay stuff off early. Find out I'm going to go to Hawaii in like another year and a half. Like I was able to negotiate pretty early because I was deployed, and they said, hey, we'll let you start negotiating now for your next duty station. I said, great. So knew we were going to Hawaii and said, okay, we have to be done. We have to have this debt paid off before we get to Hawaii because I want to see if we could buy another house, right? I want to buy a house in Hawaii. So here we are, paid off all of our debt, and we're transferring to Hawaii. We got 40 grand in the bank after paying everything else off. We just kept saving and saving. And we get to Hawaii, and I start going through all the paperwork for my loan. And I said, you know what, let me try to see if I can put in a VA loan and see what they say. I put in all the stuff for the VA loan. It comes back, and they say, hey, your record's flagged. We have to look into that. I said, well, I know what it's flagged for. I'll tell you exactly why, and explained everything to them. And they said, okay, that's what we're going to go look for. So they go and pull it up, and they said, well, yeah, we can see that they filed this short sale in here, but the problem is they filed it a day too late for it to actually count against you. So it's actually null and void. So congratulations, you have your VA eligibility. I was like, what?
Nice.
So I was extremely fortunate because I thought I was going to have to like tack on an extra $67,000 onto this property. So yeah, so that worked out, and here we are. So bought the house out here in Hawaii, and after being here for a little while, the bug came back about wanting to buy like actual rental properties and real estate. And I'm talking to my wife about it, and she's really not on board because she remembers what happened with our last house. And I said, okay, I got to figure out a way to get past this because, something like that was like a freak thing. And, we haven't seen anything like that since. We've just seen the real estate market just cruising right along. And I said, there's got to be a way to convince her, right? So I started looking up deals and everything. And I said, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. I'm not interested. I'm not interested. So I said, hey, I've got two friends out here that have an amazing real estate portfolio, and she knows them too. I said, let's go have lunch with them and just talk, figure it out. So I called them, kind of pre-gamed it, and said, hey, my wife and I, we're coming over to have lunch. This is what we're going to talk about. I need your help. So we got everything set up, and I had brought some deals with me that I had been looking at. And we get over there, and she knows that's what we're going there for. We're going to have lunch and talk about, their real estate portfolio. So they come and they pull everything out, and they have, all the numbers, everything for all their properties. I think at the time they had 27 doors, and they're showing us everything. And my wife's like, wow, this is pretty good. So you're actually making this much profit per month, and these are your expenses. She's like, okay, so this is actually something that is feasible. So it started to look more realistic for her, right? So then I'm just like, hey, well, hold that thought. Here's two deals that I found that I really like, and blah, blah, blah. I said, let's go over it with them and see what they think. So we go over it with them, and they were both pretty good deals, and we wound up buying one of them, right? So That was our first rental property. We bought a duplex back in Virginia. Now, the only issue with that is we buy this duplex in February of 2020, and we all know what happened in March 2020, right? The world ended.
Right.
So didn't know that was coming. Like we thought the whole COVID thing was isolated on the other side of the country, so we're good, right? No. So we buy this duplex. Seems like everything's fine until one of our tenants says, "Hey, I just lost my job and I can't pay rent." So I said, "Oh, okay, great." Well,
Yeah, then
luckily
I'm
my
gonna have to
downstairs
move
tenant,
out.
yeah, yeah. And then luckily my downstairs tenant though was Section 8, right, HUD, and they basically covered my mortgage. So I wasn't eating like a huge cost. I was just paying my property manager in Virginia. That was probably like the only cost that was coming out of my pocket at that point, because me being in Hawaii, the property being back in Virginia, I had to have somebody there to take care of it, right? So I had a property manager, I had a maintenance person. So all that was set up. Then I started realizing, okay, I bought a 100-year-old house. Things started breaking, things started going wrong. And I'm like, okay, figured this would happen. I had some money set to the side for emergencies. Well, I blew through that quick. And I'm like, oh, all right. So fast forward a couple months later, I was able to get the one tenant enrolled in this rent repayment program that and it was like pulling teeth. Like I basically filled out all the paperwork for him, sent it to him, and said, "Here, sign this, please, and send it to this office." So after about 2 months of trying to get him to sign it and getting it sent in, finally get that sent in, and I got back paid all the rent that was owed to me, all the late fees, and everything. So I was like, okay, now this is a cash flowing property. Now I actually made a profit from this place, so that worked out. A year after I bought it, I put it back on the market because being in the military, I was not allowed to fly off island at the time. We had a military travel ban because of COVID, and I was like,
Oh,
okay, this really sucks. I want to go to the property and go check it out and actually do, because I did everything sight unseen, man, like everything.
right.
Buying it, like the inspection, I had my contractor go to the place and look at it, and then I waived the inspection, so I just had somebody else go do it.
It's
So
crazy that that's
big
happening in
mistake.
Virginia too, because that's what's happening in Idaho. Like we have
Yeah.
lots of people are moving in from out of state, and they'll do the same thing. I've had 3 properties my adult life. I sold one, didn't make, I sold it. I had to move, so for my job,
Mm.
and I ended up. It was like I had to get rid of it, and I wasn't in the same mindset that I am now, or I would have turned it into a rental. But they'll do that now. It sounds like it's probably that way in Hawaii too, but here there was so many houses that are on the market. They're on the market for like 3 days. I listed mine on Monday at a very high price, sold it on Saturday, got a full price offer for it. And the people actually lived here, which was very odd to me because I was looking for that person who was going to have the real estate agent go in there with a camera and kind of take pictures of it and then just wave everything. And I had set the price a little bit high. And then the market, it kind of leveled off. But it's amazing that people will do that because they didn't have an option, right? Is that what
Yeah.
you see
Yeah.
in Hawaii as well?
Absolutely. You see that, but there is a lot of that, realtors coming in with their phone and like doing live videos with clients and stuff. Because
Yeah.
a lot of the folks that are coming here are moving here from the mainland United States or Japan and stuff like that. So you see a lot of Japanese investors here too, right? Coming out here buying a lot of property. Um, so I'm also a real estate agent out here in Hawaii, right? So I've done quite a few open houses, and I see that all the time where other agents will come in just by themselves with their phone, or they'll be taking pictures, taking videos, sending it back to their clients, and doing it that way. Now, my target market for being a realtor, right, is the military. So you see that a lot too, right, where people come in and representing them. They're still stationed back in the States or wherever else they're stationed at, and then they PCS here. They get their orders and they come here. So it's a lot of that is there's a lot of sight unseen stuff, right?
Right.
Even the guy that came and replaced me at my last job, he did everything sight unseen. He showed up, and it was the first time he saw the property that he bought.
Would you say
So
that that's like a common thing for military people though? Because I feel like you have to move, and maybe I'm wrong because obviously I'm not in the military, but you have to move kind of sometimes like that, right? And you may not have that time to make that happen, so you either live on base or you go with the possibility of you may have to see it sight unseen.
Yeah, no, that is very common for the military. Now you'll see, like if it's more of like a PCS, like they're changing duty stations uh, in the states, then you'll see that less, right? Because a lot of times they'll just say, okay, I'll wait till I get there. I'll drive over there and go check it out. But when you're going to like like if you're going from the East Coast to the West Coast, you're doing most of that stuff sight unseen. Otherwise, to go look at properties, you're paying $1,000 for a round trip ticket from Virginia to California, right? And then you're getting over there and you're looking at properties, and then you got to fly back, and hopefully you got something that you found something that you can
Yeah, you
actually purchase,
find it.
right? And even if you find something you could purchase, you got to hope that you're going to be the number one bid,
Right.
because especially right now in Hawaii, it's starting to taper off. But I mean, we have clients right now that will go put in 25 offers before they get one accepted. It's absolute insanity. Like there's bidding wars on a lot of these houses out here. You'll see these clauses, right, where basically, they're like, "Hey, I'll whatever the highest offer is, I'll go above it $1,000."
Yeah,
So these
that's
escalation
exactly what's
clauses, right?
happening here.
And you see people going back and forth with that, and it gets kind of wild. It's like the Wild West, It's crazy.
Well, you have to write that contract that way too, right? You have to like I feel like when I was selling my house, my realtor was like, "Well, we'll put in a clause that says that you'll accept their offer, but if you get another offer that's higher, then you're going to take that one and the other person has the opportunity to meet that offer or you're back out." Like they have first
Yeah, so
choice, but you can take a higher amount.
we can't quite do it like that in Hawaii. But basically we have a deadline. We could say, hey, here's the last day that we're taking best and final offers. Then we're going to review them and select one and then select a backup offer, right? Um, so you'll see basically like I haven't seen anybody come in offering under asking price at all for any of the properties that I've had listed. I have not seen anybody. For the most part, people are always offering above asking price, and they're waiving a lot of the contingencies, right?
Yeah.
And so they're waiving inspections, all of that. Now, there's certain things that have to happen out here in the state of Hawaii, right? So it's a little bit different than other areas, but at the same time, like you see a lot of people just taking that risk because they're just, I want to get the property because it's so lucrative right now. And so it's a great time to be a seller. Like it's a wonderful time to be a seller. It's a really hard time to be a buyer. And even before COVID and the market got crazy, like Hawaii, like when I came out here and bought, I lost my first four houses that I put offers on. And I got my fifth one. It was kind of the same thing. And at the time, it wasn't like you have to offer like way over asking. But I basically, the house that we got, I said, hey, we'll pay full asking price and we'll pay the closing costs. And that's how we were able to get it. We offered that on all the other houses too, but somebody just came in from behind us with some type of escalation and said, hey, we'll pay, over whatever your highest bid is. So that's how we lost out on those. But I'm really happy with the house that we got because the appreciation this year has been well, not just this year, but since I've moved here, has been absolutely insane. I mean, my property went up over $300,000 in value since we purchased. It's wild.
It's crazy that's awesome that you've made that much on there. It's crazy to me that, and just kind of and maybe I'm, I don't want to get political with it, but like I feel like Hawaii seems like one of the more regulated due to COVID, kind of like California, a couple other states, but people are still coming there. Idaho, we have the exact opposite. We're a little less regulated, and so that's people are coming from like California, Washington, Oregon, and moving to Idaho because they want less regulation. Um, what kind of do you feel like you're kind of getting people there that a little bit of both, or is it just why is the main reason to want to come to Hawaii just because it's beautiful in the weather? Because why are so many more people moving there now than were previous? I guess is that
I think you just said it. It's I think it's still the same. Like I don't think it's ever really changed. Like we've always had a shortage of homes for sale
uh-huh.
because we have a lot of investors that come out here and buy. Now, there's actually I'll point something out that's super important, and it's very relevant to what's going on, but at the same time, it's going away. Now, remember I mentioned earlier we have a lot of Japanese investors that come out here and purchase properties, right?
Right.
Now, I didn't know this. I found this out from another investor friend of mine that actually lives in Japan. That in Japan, if you buy foreign property, you can write off. I think it was like up to 25% of the value of the property. So basically, in 4 years, you could write off the entire home against your taxes.
No
So
doubt.
if you're making $1 million a year and you have four $1 million properties out here in Hawaii, each year you're claiming 25% on all of them. So you're not paying any taxes in the state, in the country of Japan, right?
That's
Now that
beautiful.
went away this year. So they can't do that no more.
Right.
So I was trying to see, like, is it going to start tapering off, or are we going to see less investors coming over here? But that was the way it was working, and that's why we had so many Japanese investors. Because one, we're relatively close to Japan, right? So it's just a spot where it's I guess it's more convenient. But at the same time, there's always been a large Japanese presence on the islands, right?
Right.
So it was very interesting to learn that. Now, at the same time, for at least the island of Oahu, you have all the military that's always coming and going, and well, a decent percentage, a decent amount of military folks purchase properties when they come here, because one of the good things about the appreciation here, like, I mean, we appreciate 3 to 5% every year. So the properties are going up in value 3 to 5%. Now, this past year, it was more like 19%, right? But basically, you can come here to Hawaii, you could purchase a property, and when you transfer 3 years later, you're selling that property for a profit. So, and you're paying less than you would have paid for rent because you've got your mortgage now. So it's kind of, for the military folks, it's kind of a no-brainer. Now, at the same time, you have a lot of people that are moving here just because they want the endless summer and the weather. So like I was saying, like going back to what you said, that you
Yeah.
kind of mentioned it. Yes, the weather is a huge factor here. People love the weather, even in the rainy season. Like, it doesn't rain too bad. Like right now is like the rainy season, like, January, February, March. So our winter is kind of rainy. It gets a little chilly, like it gets down into the high 60s, low 70s. I have to put my little hoodie on. But
It's
that's
a
okay.
weird it's a weird rain too, right? Like it's not like it's like it rains here, it's doomy gloomy. Like I feel like when I went to Hawaii probably 15 years ago. And we went to the Big Island and it was raining and you're just like, is this really what rain's like? It's like the sun's kind of out and it's warm and I don't know, it's just a different type of rain.
Yeah, so you do see a lot of that, right? Like sun showers and stuff, like same stuff you see in Florida, right? But no, there's times, especially in the wintertime, like the clouds are like, the sky is grayed out and it's just coming down.
Right.
Now, I live in a particular part on the west side of Oahu, where we basically call it the desert because it doesn't really rain here too much. But when it does and it rains hard, like it floods like crazy. Not like really floods, but like it's just so much water because we're just not used to it, right?
Right.
So that gets kind of wild. Now, the for the rest of the market, though, like what I was saying before, is the other piece of that is you do have folks from California and other, like, um, I guess more the more I guess richer cities, I guess you could say, but you'll have folks from like the Bay Area that are retiring, right? That purchased their home in San Francisco, 30, 40 years ago at like 400,000, and turned around and sold it for 4 million.
Right.
So they're coming out here, and so the average median household price in Hawaii right now is $1,050,000. That's the average price of a home. So when I moved here, the average median price was like 725. So yeah, food for thought, right? And so
It's
this
crazy
is
because
over the past
it's like
3.5
450
years.
here, but
Excuse me.
it's like 450 here. We sold our house. We paid 324 for it in January of 2018. Might have been 2017. Sold it last summer for 6. But if we want to buy something
That's
that's bigger,
bonkers.
yeah, it's crazy. We sold it for 6, but I'm gonna pay 9, maybe $1 million for a new one.
Yeah.
And that's how fast the market has grown. The original house that I bought, in Middleton, which was a few towns down from where I was, we paid $117,000 for it, 10 years ago, and sold it for 2. So
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know, it's growing, it's getting
Yeah,
huge.
different markets. Like, you have some markets that appreciate really well, and then you have some markets that, if you're buying it as a rental property, like, that'll cash flow better. That's one of the things that, like, as a real estate investor, that's one of the things you're looking at. Like, am I buying this to actually cash flow, or am I buying this because I know in a couple of years I'll be able to sell it and make a
Right.
bunch of money? So yeah, same thing. Like, when I purchased this house out here, 3.5 years ago, I paid 785 for it, and it's worth 1.1 now.
Yeah.
So it's just insane. Um, but yeah, the thing is though, these investors, they sell their property for like 4 million in the Bay Area. They come over here, and you have people that are like trying to buy a house. They're offering full asking price. Like, oh, this house is 950,000. I'll offer 150, or 100,000, 100,050, whatever, right? So they're offering like 100,000 over asking price, right? So 1,150,000.
Right.
So I've seen it happen. I actually had a very close friend of mine who offered on one property 150,000 over asking price, and they still didn't get it, which is absolutely bonkers because they had somebody else come in with cash that said, "Oh, you're selling this house for $1 million. I'll offer you 1,175,000." Just like that, cash. Here you go. Here's the
Yeah.
check. Close in 10 days. So stuff like that is what was making it very difficult for the people that were actually looking to buy a home out here to live and move here, because there was a lot of retirees just coming in and snatching them up with cash.
Yeah.
So
So, one of the cool things, and I think I'm pretty sure I want to ask you about why you're retiring a little bit earlier, because I think I was listening to one of your podcasts this morning and you're talking about you're going to wait like 5 or 6 years. And now you told me before we got on that it's going to be happening sooner than that. So, real estate
yeah,
is one of those things that I'm guessing because I'm thinking about just the numbers. I sell window coverings during the day and I'm around a lot of realtors, and my wife actually does some mortgages on the side. She's a nurse, but I can imagine selling one of those homes makes quite a bit of a difference in your income. So is that why you kind of decided, hey, I'm going to retire a little bit sooner because that's a little bit more lucrative here and I can invest more? Or what were your thoughts on that? Why are you retiring earlier from the military?
yes and no, right? So here's the way I looked at it. I it worked out where I was able to get another set of orders to stay in Hawaii, right? And I was going to do at least another 3 years here. But I decided to drop my retirement paperwork as I hit 20 years because I was crunching numbers, and just looking at the numbers, it just made sense. Because after the 20-year point, I'm working for half my pay, right? Because when I get my pension, I'm going to get 50% of my pay for the rest of my life. And it's very hard to be a full-time realtor while I'm on active duty. So I was only doing it part-time. So the plan is right now to retire, be full-time, and keep investing in more real estate. So like this couple months ago, I just got in a deal for my first apartment building, right? So with some other partners, we took down a 102 unit apartment building in Roanoke, Virginia, right? So my focus now is to buy like larger multifamily real estate. I'm looking at possibly getting into self-storage here in the future, just because I think it's pretty lucrative. And yeah, I feel like there's so much more opportunity once I retire and just go out and be an entrepreneur myself. So yes, I have plans, but those plans can change and fluctuate. But basically, I want to retire and just be a full-time entrepreneur, doing, being a realtor, investing, and running my podcast. So
Yeah, and I think that the biggest thing that most people don't know about real estate investment, because I'm working on it. Like, obviously I know it's probably the hardest part, I think, is probably convincing your partner that it's worth it, because a lot of times when you don't have that same type of thought process on things, like I could go buy a house right now, rent it out or live in it for a little while, and then buy another one, just pay it off 70%, use the profits of that, refinance, get another one, and continually do that. But there is a little bit of a risk. You talked about how you kind of took a bath on the first one, which I think a lot about too, like investing. It's like it takes time to make that happen. So like, had you stayed there, had you waited, what's that house worth now? If you could have, and then rented it out and find a renter, but you can't find one. So you got to be willing to take that risk, right? The situation that you're in now, the people are going to be paying, you got 120 units versus one. And now you have everyone paying that rent every single time, covering most of the mortgage. Hopefully you're covering the rent with that, and then you're able to do the upkeep. How would you advise someone who wants to get into buying real estate to make money, to start without taking a huge risk?
yeah, absolutely. So first, I don't give any advice. right? It's all for entertainment purposes only. No, that's just a disclaimer, right? So,
Right.
look, so I also do financial coaching on the side as well. I don't really talk about that too much because I don't charge what other financial coaches charge, because I keep my prices very low for a reason. Because most of the people that come to me for help with that are in a pretty bad spot and they can't afford, $250 an hour like what some of these other guys charge. But anyway, I see it a lot with clients that I've talked to that want to start getting into real estate investing. The first thing you have to focus on is getting your life in order, right? Making sure you're in a good spot. Um, but at the same time, understanding risk, what is risk, and how do you know, mitigate the risk the best way that you can. And I'm going to tell you right now, no matter what you invest in, whether it's the stock market, whether it's real estate, whether it's cryptocurrency or NFTs or any of that stuff, there's risk involved. So doing your homework and educating yourself is probably the most important thing you can do. Not probably, it is the most important thing you could do. Before I got into this multifamily space, I linked up, I networked, I met a whole bunch of other people in the real estate area. Networking is huge in this community, especially if you're looking to scale and grow. I got to meet some folks that are doing some really amazing things in the multifamily space. I'm looking at some of the properties they're taking down. I'm watching them, and I'm like, I want to invest with this team. I want to get comfortable first. So I watched them take down, like they just started, right? And I watched them take down their first couple apartment buildings. I'm like, okay. And I'm looking at the progress and looking at the stuff that's happening over a few months, and like how they're doing, if they're cash flowing, how are they paying their investors back, right? So just being able to watch this, going to their monthly meetings, and where they're giving updates on all their properties, I was like, okay, this is really neat. So an opportunity came up for this other one, and one of the guys like gave me a call. He said, "Hey, Mike, we've got another spot open. If you want to invest in this apartment building, let me know. We'll get you in." I said, "You know what, man? I'm in. Let's do it." So that's how I got into my first piece of multifamily, and it's because of the folks that I knew. Now, I'm not saying that that's the same way everyone's going to do. Everybody has their own journey and their own different way of doing things. But I'll tell you what worked for me was networking, meeting other people, seeing what they're doing, surrounding myself with people that I feel are years ahead of me, right? And some that are just a few years ahead of me. And I stuck with the people that are just a few years ahead of me because I felt like that's more attainable. Like, I'm not going to sit here and try to shadow the guy that's been doing real estate for 20 years and he's got, $250 million in real estate, where I'm like, oh, hey, I have a house, you know, um, you're not really, because if you try to pick their brain and ask them what they did when they first started, man, that was 20 years ago for them. And it was a different world.
Right.
But the guys that just started 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, hey, man, how'd you start? What are you doing? So that's why I'm saying, like, it's, if somebody who wants to get started today, find a local meetup, right? Go onto the different forums. Like Bigger Pockets is a great place to go. That's where I started listening to that podcast. Listen to podcasts. Become a content sponge. Read books. Probably the first book that I read that really lit a fire up under me was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I know it's cliche. That's what everybody
You know
says,
what? It's
but
not,
it really
because
is.
that is the first book. Like when I decided I was going to do this interview with you, I was thinking right off the bat, Rich Dad Poor Dad has to be Rich Dad Poor Dad, just
Yeah.
because the way that works. Like, I mean, there's so many things you can work for people, or you can have people work for you. You can make your money work for you, or you can just, you're talking about your pension. Yeah, most people go after, hey, I'm going to have a pension for the rest of my life, right? That's why I'm going to stick with that job instead of moving
Yeah.
around. I could have done that. I was a teacher, for 4 years, and I just didn't see any value in it. And everyone's like, well, you got good retirement. I'm like, so what? I quit working there. I had good retirement. I make 4 times as much money selling window coverings as I did teaching, and I can make my own retirement, and
Yeah, absolutely.
that's the thing. It's like everyone's banked their whole life on, hey, let's go to college, let's get something that's steady, let's get something that'll be steady for my whole life, so I don't have to worry about anything in the end. And in the end, they have nothing except for a retirement.
Right. Right. And you worked your whole life for that. So, I know plenty of people that got out of the military, thanks to real estate, and they did not pursue their pension. Two of them I know got out between the 12 and 15-year mark. Like, oh my goodness, just a couple more years, you could have collected a check for the rest of your life. I started a little bit too late in the game before I really got into it and realized, that how lucrative real estate investing really is. If I would have gotten more involved back when I bought that first property, I probably would have got out of the Navy shortly after that. If the 2008, 2009 crash didn't like stomp my face in and knock my teeth out. But, you know, the way I look at it now, I just want to point something out too. There's not a lot of career fields or jobs anymore that give you pensions anymore. And just, the
Right.
military just got rid of theirs. So it's, people joining now, they're not going to have that opportunity that I had when I joined, 20 years ago. Now they help you. They have this thing called the Thrift Savings Plan. It's a 401k, right, or a Roth IRA, and they'll match, I think, up to 5% now, um, which is actually still good. It's a very competitive retirement package, and you could, if you really go hard, you can do 10 to 12 years in the military, and then essentially retire because you would have invested enough. Um, but anyway, yeah, I'll break away from that and just say that, I'm pretty fortunate that I was able to be in a career field where I'm going to get a decent pension. I was enlisted for 9.5 years before commission as an officer. So that's helping my that's helping my pension be a little bit higher than it would have been if I would have stayed enlisted. Um, so it just puts me in a better spot. Like my retirement, like I just actually looked it up the other day. Paid over the lifetime, if I live to 85, I'll get paid out over $4 million, just from the pension alone, which is absolutely bonkers. That's just to wake up and look around every day and say, "Oh, I just got paid," for doing absolutely nothing. But what I like about that is right now, like my pension is going to cover my mortgage and some of my expenses. If if I get disability, which I think I will, pretty much all my expenses are covered. So I'm not going to be that realtor that has to chase a commission. I could be more, back off. I can focus more on my dreams and my journey, and being an entrepreneur. Um, and just focus on all that because I genuinely love what I do with my podcast. I love talking to people. I love bringing guests on and having them share their story. Because every now and then when I get like a DM on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on Instagram where somebody says, "Hey, I listened to this episode when you interviewed so and so, and like this completely changed my perspective on things and it changed my life." Like stuff like that means more to me than any type of rating I can get, any type of
Right.
monetization or anything like that I get from the podcast because I monetize the show. Like I make a little bit of money off of it, and that's fine. I reinvested into the podcast, but when I have people telling me that my show helped them, it that means more to me than anything else. So, and that's what it's all about, and that's what I want to continue pursuing when I retire from the Navy.
Yeah, and that's why I do my show. It's the same thing, and that's why I like having people on like you and all my other guests who can talk about however they've done that, however they've made that happen. Because some people think, we're talking about real estate investing today, and that is success for you, and that's something that you enjoy and something that you want to pursue. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone else wants that, and I think like we always talk in terms of money, but in my mind, when I'm thinking about real estate, it's one of those things that always kicks back money. It always will take care of you later on. Whereas people who make a lot of money, a lot of times they're like, "Oh, let's go buy a car." Then oh, it depreciates, right? It's not worth anything. It's not worth you know getting yourself further along, and taking that little bit of risk will help you later on in life. So it is, but that one person takes that one comment, and then you're back. It's kind of like golf. Do you golf?
I am horrible at golfing. I'm more of a bowler. I'm a
Okay.
good bowler.
Well, I am a terrible golfer, but I will tell you this: every time you go out and you get that, you know, it could be on the 18th hole. You get that birdie, or you hit that drive that's right down the middle. You're like, that's right. I'll be back tomorrow because I want to replicate that. So that's
Yeah,
kind of the
I
thing.
think I got a par once on one hole, and that was like the best day of my life in golfing. That's how bad I am.
Yeah, you probably well when you got that par, you're probably like, oh, I'm gonna go again, and then you went the next time, and you're
And
like,
I put it in the lake.
yeah, I didn't get a par this time.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, it's been great talking to you. I really appreciate your insights on things. I don't, we have one question that we always ask, and we'll get to that after you kind of tell us where we can find you. If anyone wants to talk to you about real estate, if anyone wants to talk to you about the Navy, are you pretty approachable, and where can we find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make it easy for everybody because I'm everywhere. I'm all over social media. You can at Mike Cavaggioni or at Average Joe Finances. Find me. But I have all my links saved to it's averagejoefinances.com/links, and that'll bring you to my links page where you can get to my podcast, all of my social media, and pretty much everything else I have going on.
Yep.
Or you can even email me. It's Mike at averagejoefinances.com.
Very approachable. And I look forward to listening to your podcast more and seeing where you go with this. It's great to know you. That last question that we always ask, though, is what is the shape of your success? How do you define success if you had to put it in a nutshell?
If I had to put success in a nutshell, I would say it's freedom. It's time freedom. To me, that's success. And a lot of people say money can't buy happiness. And I'm not looking for my money to buy happiness. I'm looking for my money to buy time and get my time back. And like I said, time is freedom. And to me, that's success.
And that's crazy because, just like we talked about, real estate's one of those things that you get enough property, you get enough stuff together, it basically pays your bills for you, and you're able to just work on those other things, spending time with family and things like that. So it's a great way to find it.
Absolutely.
Well, Mike, thanks for taking the time. I know that the sun's probably up or popping up around there. You're a little bit behind us in time, but it was exciting to talk to you, and I hope that you have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks. You too, Wes. Take it easy. And aloha.
Yeah. See ya. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. That is the end of the show. Until next time, I challenge you to find the shape of your success.